Today I'm going to show you how I paint hair in acrylics. I've decided to start with the black and white because it's at that stage where I paint my shapes and stuff, and I want you guys to see that. And then I'll be adding the color. So we're going from 0 to 60 on this one. Okay, I know this angle isn't the best. I promise the next sections will be better. Anyway, I'm putting a base on now. I'm filling in the whole thing with this almost black shade. There's just a little bit of the white in here, because that'll be easier on me than drawing in details and trying to paint around them. This is an example of why we do underpainting, because honestly, if I had gone straight to the color, I probably would have made the hair way lighter than it should be. Okay, it's time to draw in my details. The lines and shapes I draw here will determine the direction the hair goes. I'm using a white charcoal pencil, which my camera is doing a terrible job of picking up, but I'll explain what I'm doing as best I can. I want you to notice that I'm not taking my pencil and dragging it from the roots to the ends over and over. I'm moving it all over where the hair is. I'm going in one space, making a mark, stopping, then going to another space, making a mark and stopping, and so on. Honestly, you don't need to see every line I'm making because you won't be copying these exact shapes, necessarily. What I want you to take away from this is, when drawing hair, even messy shapes, not neat lines all in a row. Now this is the part where I fill in those shapes I drew with a slightly lighter color than my base. If you're working in acrylics, I don't think it matters if you go from dark to light, or light to dark, or if you put your midtones down first, and then paint your lights and darks. Whatever way you want to do it is probably fine. I prefer to look at whatever is the predominant shade in whatever area I'm painting, put that down first, and layer from there. Since this woman's hair is pretty dark, I started with my darkest shade. The strands on her forehead are actually lighter than what I've been painting the rest, so I'm going to mix a bit of white into the color I'm working with to paint them. Finally, I'm mixing a lot of white into my gray. And I'm going to use this very light gray with a liner brush to paint highlights. Now it's time to add the color. I would normally paint the entire underpainting first before I add color, but because I'm doing a tutorial and I want it to be ready as soon as possible, I'm putting the color down in the hair now. Looking at my reference photo, I saw that there's a lot of a dark reddish brown in her hair. So I've mixed transparent burnt sienna with ivory black, and I'm glazing that where it goes. Glazing is when an artist takes colors that are already transparent, thins them down with water or medium so they're even more transparent, and applies them in thin layers to the canvas. I can see that her hair is ashy in tone, meaning that there's some gray. Of course, I don't want her to look like she's actually going gray, so what I'm doing is mixing transparent mixing white with ivory black, which makes it transparent gray, and I'm putting this down with a liner brush. I'm also trying my best to make this shade of gray as close as possible to the surrounding browns. This helps ensure it'll be very subtle, which is exactly what I want. Lastly, for the hair on the sides of her head, I've mixed transparent burnt umber with ivory black, so it's very dark, and I'm putting that where I'd put my darkest shade in my underpainting. This helps blend the gray in even more. I've looked at my reference photo again, and I can see that the gray I was talking about earlier is actually kind of bluish. So I've mixed a blue-gray from transparent mixing white, ivory black, and ultramarine blue. And I'm applying that, again with a liner brush, where it's appropriate. At this point, I'm honestly feeling like the painting is looking worse, but I kept going and it did work out. I realized I needed to put some of the dark brown that I used before in the lightish reddish brown areas, so that's what I did. Again, I'm using my liner brush. Now we get to the front portion of her hair. This portion is unique because, as you can see, it's lighter and brighter than the rest. It also seems to have a purplish cast to it. I'm starting with transparent burnt sienna and mixing that with the violet made by mixing quinacridone red with ultramarine blue. For the highlights, the part I was most looking forward to, I mixed cadmium yellow medium with a touch of burnt sienna. Up until now, I've been glazing, but this time I want the color to be opaque. I'm using my liner brush again. After working on this a bit, I thought it still wasn't light enough, so I glazed transparent mixing white over it to lighten it. After that, I glazed more transparent burnt sienna and then quinacridone red. And then the rest of the time I've spent just adding more color or adding more details, readjusting things, etc. So this part still needs work, but I think you get the gist of it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed it, please click that like button down there. I upload videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so if you haven't already, click this button here to subscribe. Tap the bell down there to turn on notifications. And for now, thanks for watching.